Hi, everyone. Welcome to our info session on designing your research poster for the Mass URC. This info session will be recorded. The slides are actually already up on the Mass URC Hub, and we will be doing a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions, just hold on to them for later. So my name is Anisha. I'm a junior. I'm a computer science and math major, and I'm one of the Mass URC conference assistants.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ava. I'm a senior, and I'm a communication and journalism major, and I'm also a conference assistant. So first off, we're going to start by going into research posters.
Research posters are a very common and popular method of presenting research in a concise and aesthetic way. On the day of the conference, presenters are going to be standing by their posters, which are going to be pinned up to the poster boards that we provide during the presentation slots. So presentation slots are going to be 45 minutes, and we're going to have 5 poster sessions throughout the day. And they'll basically be showcasing their work to those walking by and allowing them to engage, which will allow them to engage directly with their audience. And common components of research posters that are usually included are concise text, tables, graphs, images, and various formats of data. Basically, just different design components that allow you to share your research in a creative and appealing way.
So we'll be providing you with a poster board that is 48 inches by 72 inches or 4 feet by 6 feet, and then pins to display your research poster on this. And your poster can be any size up to 4 by 6 feet, but it doesn't have to take up this entire space. So if you need any help designing your research poster, you can ask your faculty sponsor. At this point, they should have already approved your research, and they'll also be helping you with and approving your poster. And as you all know, as presenters, you have the option to do a group presentation or an individual presentation.
And for reference, here is a picture of what the poster board that we're going to be providing looks like. You can see the dimensions on there, and you'll be able to see the height from the ground, the total height from the poster board. This reference image is also on the Mass URC Hub if you want another size reference.
So we don't have one single suggested poster size, but here are some recommendations with photos of each size for reference. So the most common is 48 inches by 36 inches, which is 4 feet by 3 feet. But you can also do 60 inches by 36 inches, 48 by 48 inches, 30 by 48, and 56 by 42. You can really do any size as long as it's under 4 by 6 feet.
So what makes an effective poster? To make a good research poster, you want to make sure that the most important information, such as the title of your abstract or poster, is readable from at least 10 feet away so that it's easy for your poster to catch the eye of people who are just going to be walking by. We suggest having a short and attention-grabbing title for the same reason. We also want you to make sure that you're including your acknowledgments, your name, and the academic institution that you're affiliated with on your poster to give proper credit to everyone involved, including like if you're in a group presentation, make sure all your group members are mentioned on that poster. So just make sure you're utilizing a mix of text, tables, graphs, images, and other data formats to summarize your research and convey your information in a succinct and appealing way. You really don't want your research poster to just be like a block of text. You want it to be a mixture of different components so that it's easy for people to understand what's going on. So try to get creative with it.
So next, we're going to talk about how to design your research poster.
So when you're designing a research poster, it's important to pay attention to how you're organizing your content. Make use of headings and subheadings to separate your content into sections. Use bullets and numberings to organize and summarize any information or methodologies that you'd like to convey. And then arrange your content so that it flows in the flow of it follows the flow of your research process. So you probably want like background, context, motivation at the top left, and like maybe results and acknowledgments at the bottom right, or something like that, depending on how you conducted your research. Make sure you use like a consistent design scheme throughout your poster. Keep the layout and color palette consistent so that it all looks like it's part of the same poster.
So these are some components that we recommend including in your poster. So first off, you want to be sure to provide background information so that people who might not be familiar with your area of study can know what you're talking about. And then you also want to clearly state your research question, as this shows your audience what you're trying to achieve with your research. Next, you want to explain methods and procedures that you use throughout your research process. And then for design considerations, you want to be sure that you have an even ratio of content and blank space on your poster, because it can be overwhelming to try to look at a poster that's crowded with a lot of information. And finally, you want to leave sufficient margins around your edges of your poster to give it a cleaner look.
Okay, so now we're going to go into how to incorporate accessibility into your poster just to make sure that it can reach all parts of your audience that you intended.
So first is, why does it matter? So your poster acts as a visual representation of your research, and in order to make it accessible, you have to choose those design elements that are clear and easily understandable. So this will ensure that the widest possible audience will be able to engage with your research at the conference. So next, we have some design tips to enhance readability in your poster. And starting with fonts, we recommend a sans serif font, so such as Arial, Gill Sans, Helvetica, and Verdana, or something similar for your body and heading text. But for serif fonts like Times New Roman, we suggest only using that for headings because they can be a bit harder to read in a big block of text, especially if you're not right in front of the poster.
Moving on to text size, like we said earlier, like maybe try to make sure that you're using font sizes that are easier to read from a distance, especially the important information on your research poster. Try to make sure that's legible from at least 10 feet away. And for accessibility reasons, you want to make sure it's easy for your audience to read the information that you're putting on your poster. Like we said, don't crowd your poster with text. Try to make sure you go about it so that you're conveying the most information using fewer words. And here are some recommendations for font sizes. Again, these slides are already up on the website, so this presentation is going to be a good reference for when you're making your poster. We recommend a 72-point minimum for the main title, 42-point minimum for the section headings, 24-point minimum for the body text, and 18-point minimum for captions. Another thing to consider is colors. So you want to make sure that there's enough contrast between the text on your poster and the background. And so one way to check for this is by using the color contrast checking tool that we linked on the Mass URC Hub, just to make sure that there's sufficient contrast and that makes your research poster more readable to anybody. And we also suggest avoiding using solely color to convey meaning. So anywhere you're using color to mean something, make sure you add patterns or shading along with maybe labeling. So this could apply to charts, graphs, illustrations, and maps. Try to avoid just using only color to have something mean something.
So next up is verbal communication. And why this matters is because on conference day, you'll be talking attendees through your research. And by considering the accessibility, you can ensure that the verbal explanations provide a coherent understanding of your research for all different audience members. So some tips to consider to be able to do this are, first, your clarity, which includes speaking at a moderate pace and enunciating your words. And next up is using inclusive language and avoiding jargon that not everyone knows what it means, which will make your research available to the most diverse audience possible. And lastly is adding a description for all visuals you might include, for example, like graphs, tables, or other images. Otherwise, people might not understand what it's about. And here are some last-minute tips to help you prepare for the conference. So you can expect to explain your research to a lot of different people during your session. So it's helpful to have an elevator pitch prepared, which is basically just a verbal summary of your research that summarizes all of your results and keeps it pretty short and simple. And if you want to bring props, you're welcome to do so. You're also welcome to request accommodations on the Mass URC Hub, which could be like a small table or something like that. But we can't guarantee we'll be able to provide you with one, but by all means bring props. We just can't guarantee that there'll be a stand for it. And if you have friends and family who would like to attend the conference as guests, you can have them fill out the guest check-in form, which is available on the homepage of the Mass URC Hub.
And we also have some research poster examples for you as well. So here are examples of research posters from past Mass URC conferences. As you can see, they're all structured, laid out very differently. They use different color palettes. They're presenting different information. So you can really get creative with this and use the layout format, the kinds of charts and diagrams that work best for your research, and prioritize what part of your research you think is the most important to you. So these are linked on the Mass URC Hub. And there's a link in the slides as well that'll show you where to see more examples of posters.
So here's a reminder of some more presenter resources. A place you can find these is on the Mass URC Hub. You all probably have already visited it if you are at this point, but it's basically a one-stop shop for information about the conference. So the poster tips, the color contrast checker, and the example posters that we just showed you guys will be on the hub. And some quick final reminders are that every presenter and faculty sponsor who plans on attending the conference this month has to confirm their attendance through the link that was sent to you by email by this Friday at noon. So everyone, make sure that if you're attending the conference, you and your faculty sponsor have both confirmed your attendance using that link. Also, we'll be sending out these slides to everyone by email if you want to refer back to anything. So keep a lookout for that in your email. And next, be sure to connect with us on Instagram and our other socials if you want to, because this is a great way to stay up to date on deadlines and other reminders. And we also have a presenter spotlight opportunity going on right now. So you all received a newsletter about this, but if you're interested in being highlighted on our social media, you can either talk about your abstract or answer a couple other questions about things you're looking forward to at the conference. And yeah, you can just submit that through the Google form if anyone's interested.
So that's all we had for the info session, but we're going to be taking questions now. So if you guys have any questions, just put it in the chat. You can private message us or raise your hand. Lena, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, thanks for making the presentation, by the way. So the one part that I still don't quite understand is, how do we submit the poster? Is it like the abstract where we have to put it on the Mass URC Hub before attending the conference?
So you should have already submitted your abstract and gotten it approved. The next part, what you're actually bringing to the conference is a printed research poster, and that's what you'll be pinning up on your poster board.
How would you recommend, how would you recommend how we get like the poster printed? Do you have any suggestions for like any places we can go to get that printed out, or?
So that's going to be something that's more relevant to the academic institution that you're attending. We suggest that you talk about it with your faculty sponsor. The Mass URC conference can't provide any assistance or funds for printing, but each school has their own services or methods or processes for getting research posters printed. So we suggest talking to your faculty sponsor. If they don't know, talk to your advisors or your college. Peter, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. I just have a technical question about sourcing materials. I'm doing a software research project, and so I have there's like a graph from a white paper from someone's research that I'd like to use, because I just feel like it would be I want to use that in my, and I do just properly source it. Do you just need a citation, or I just didn't know like the ethical considerations there?
Yeah, I think my initial suggestion would be to make sure you just properly cite it and include that citation on your research poster. But that's also something you could ask your faculty sponsor about, because they'd be more well versed. But yeah, citing it would probably be the way to go, and including that citation on the poster.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Problem. David?
So I just wanted to know if you guys have any software suggestions that we can use for the poster.
Not really. In the past, for research posters, I've used literally like Google Slides because it allows you to design everything on one slide, and you can adjust the dimensions to what you need it to be. But you can use a lot of different softwares as long as it creates a document of the proper size for printing. It really depends on what your needs are and what you're planning on putting on your poster. I would say Google Slides, Canva. There's a few different other softwares, but that's a good question. So we might come out with more guidance on that later.
All right, thank you.
Matthew?
Oh yeah. You mentioned something about a confirmation link for attending. Is that like separate from the abstract approval and everything like that? I don't know if I got that emailed.
Yeah, so you should have gotten an email with a confirmation link, which would take you to a form to confirm your attendance. It would have had you fill out your information and answer a few questions, and that would be your way of confirming your attendance. If you didn't get that email, I would email us at conference@honors.umass.edu. I'll put that in the chat. But you should have gotten an email.
Okay, thank you.
Also, be sure to tell your faculty sponsors to fill out that link as well.
Yes, that's also important. Okay, so for questions in the chat, do people typically glue their research onto the poster, or is it a large printout? It's usually a large printout. Most colleges, most academic institutions have services for printing out research posters, or at least some sort of printing service. So like we said, talk to your faculty sponsor, your advisors, your college. The library is also a good place. They also have good printing services. Do we have examples or resources for people with non-science focused projects? We should. They should be in that link, but we'll make sure to highlight posters that are non-STEM focused, because we do understand that people from not STEM backgrounds might have a little more trouble with that. The library does have printing services, at least at UMass. They should at other libraries at other academic institutions as well. So if you would like to bring a prop or another device, if you made a documentary or a video or something like that, you could possibly bring like a tablet and have the documentary play on that, along with the research poster of the work you did. That is an option you could maybe take. We also do have an accommodations form that you can fill out if you'd like to request like a table or something. We can't guarantee we'll be able to give you anything, but if you'd like something where you could prop up maybe a device or a screen or maybe an object that would go along with your research, if you have like a circuit board or something, that is an option. But in terms of your research project, your research poster, you can talk about your process and your flow and your motivation. Those are all possible components that you can include on your research poster.
Also, definitely don't feel pressured to like include data if you don't have like any solid data, because your project is really like not like quantitative and you were having a hard time like making a graph. You can definitely like replace that with photos or any other way to like visually get your point across.
So on the arrival page, under conference day, we do have a dress code section, and basically the gist of it is that we highly encourage all presenters to dress professionally for the day of the event. There's going to be legislators, university leadership, recruiters, alumni attending, so you'd want to present yourself as professionally and as put together as possible. Okay, are there any questions that I missed? Yeah, Peter?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, one more actually. At this point, is there a deadline for any changes with the abstract as far as if I wanted to reword the title at all?
I don't think there's any revisions. I don't believe so. You can always email us with your special case, and we'll
Okay.
an exception.
Thank you. I just determined I wanted a slightly different naming. So,
but in terms of any future deadlines. It's really confirming your attendance and then the day of the conference. Lena?
Yeah, sorry, I just thought of another question. Concerning the title of your abstract, does the title of the poster have to match the title of the presentation abstract?
I don't think so. No, I think you can come up with a more creative title or a shorter title.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. To access the accessibility form, that's going to be available on the Mass University Hub. And no, you're not submitting posters online on the Hub. You're just going to be printing it and bringing it to the conference. And once you get to the conference, if your poster session isn't like early on in the day, you have the option to check your poster, like check it in so that you don't have to carry it around the whole day. That's another thing. If your research project isn't finished completely, that's okay. We have had cases like that in the past. You just basically present the data you have, the results you do have, present the rest of your research process, such as motivation, background, context, methodology, stuff like that. Thank you everyone for coming. We will be uploading this recording to Zoom. Should we bring our own pinning supplies? No, we're gonna have pins available. They're gonna be on the board already. So all you really need to bring is your poster. Okay, if that looks like all the questions answered. If you have any further questions, email us at that email I put in the chat. That email is also available on slides.